We're gonna go live a couple minutes early. Boop. Sweet. Okie dokie. I'm just kind of chilling here for right now because it's not technically start time. So what's up? Nobody's really lined in, but I will somewhat describe what I'm doing here. So this live stream is dedicated to giving some background, basically, on Parallel Worlds, what it's about, and just in general, what story it's trying to tell, what it's supposed to do. So it's a rundown of the history and the process of making it and my emotional state. It's me liking to hear myself talk while I play my music in the background is probably the best description that I could give for it. So that's what I've got based on, yeah, I mean, it kind of speaks for itself, I think. The music itself speaks for itself, but, wow, I said that word a lot. The music speaks for itself, but the existence of the stream is because sometimes words with music can be nice, and I feel like, I don't always do the best job to convey what I'm trying to convey, even through music. I often do a better job with music than I do with words, but I mean, no harm in using both of them. And I figured that some cool way to celebrate the release of the album was in order. I mean, I worked really hard on this, so yeah, I figured that I would do something neat to celebrate it coming out. And this is what I could think of, because I couldn't really live perform it or anything like that. There's too many levels for me to handle at once. I mean, maybe I'm sure there's somebody out there who can probably handle doing that all at once, but I can't. So that's not within my scope of doing things. But I wanted to do something that fit with what the album was and fit with myself. So it was, kind of staying true to me and what I like to do. I'm going to, let's see. Oh, I hit a button. And I might have messed up the chat for myself, but we'll find out. I'll see if anybody decides to chat things. All right. It is 5:01 now, so I'm going to go ahead and probably get started. I think would probably be the best idea. Gotta be timely. Checking my okay, alright. In that case, let's roll. Really hope that this works. As much testing as I did, I'm not entirely certain if everything's gonna run smoothly or not, but I hope you can hear it, because I can, and it's really nice. So this first track, Past the Skies, is something that I pondered over for a little while when I was writing it. It took me a while to get the general idea, and I actually had a lot of the album written before I got to this one. It was kind of hard to find something to start on, which is weird. Usually you start in the starting place, but in this case I started in the middle. And the beginning was so hard to get a grasp of. I had so many ideas of what I wanted to do, and I couldn't figure out the right note to get everything started off on, but I ended up just kind of setting down with a track and just playing some pads. And it started with that sub bass that sits in the background. And I was like, yeah, I want this just kind of drone on. And then I started layering some pads over top of it. I made those little woo things that sits on top. Just a lot of side effects. And I took a melody that was familiar from earlier, and I decided to chop that up into tiny little pieces, and that's where you hear the like do just kind of filling things in. And this is where everything really starts. I like to give things an intro. If you haven't heard The Cycle, listen to The Cycle. There's an entire 2-minute intro called Sight that is not a song by itself. And in this case, I balance the intro with the song. And this is where things start picking up. So at this point in time in the story, what you have going on is we've just taken off. So that beginning warpiness is all of the liftoff process. The ship is starting up, it's taking to the skies, and this is the part where the title of the song comes into play, and it's past the skies. So we've just breached the atmosphere, we're out, and we're in space. And it's all of the things that are entailed in that. Just this glory of feeling yourself separate from the world, and lift off into something completely new. And it's definitely one of the songs that in a sense kind of betrays the purpose of the album, because the whole idea of the album is, if I look up into the stars, do I see myself? And this song is the opposite of that. It's, I'm going into the stars and I see everything but me. I see everything but humanity. I see no reflection of myself up there. It's all new. Nothing up there is anything that I've seen before in any way. And it's probably the only song that really betrays that fact. Yeah. I thought I had something more to say there, but I did not. And it's a feeling whenever I was writing it, I mean, you can kind of see for how long it drones on. I really wanted to hold on to it, and I realized towards the end of the song that I can't hold on to that. There's so much more out in this galaxy, out in this universe, out in this album. In this case, there's so much more to explore, and so I, at this point, started to fade it out. Things started to change. New instruments came in. I created a very subtle, like, B track to this section, and you feel it, you know, that wonder dissipate. So there's not so much of the pads, it's just little plucks and reverbs and delays going on. And you get much more of that silent space. We're still moving, we're still going somewhere, and we still have a forward look, but it's calmed down a little bit. Now we're kind of settling into, alright, we're out here in space. You know, I like to imagine this is the point where you're like, you know, passing Mars or something, you know, about to hit the asteroid belt. And so everything's getting quiet. The giddy joy you felt whenever you first left has kind of passed out because it's been a little bit of time. This is the original form of that melody that I had ripped to create Past the Skies. I wanted to use it in other things as kind of like a motif, but this song, Warp Speed, actually functions primarily like this. So it's a variation of that melody, but it's not quite the same. It's a little bit more, honestly, almost like industrial and intense. But this is, we've hit into warp, and we're kind of in this like almost lounge atmosphere, but it's like really warpy. So hence why it's called warp speed. So at this point, you know, we're kind of like chilling in the lounge. It's kind of the way that I was thinking of it whenever I was writing this. It was like, this is chill in the lounge music. Like, that's the best way I could describe it. You're just kind of hanging out and watching space go by. It's a very intense, but almost like lackadaisically so way to start off the journey. I guess I could here, how about this? We'll make us feel like we're really in warp. Now we got like some extra trail going on there. That's just the stars that are going on in the background are just part of a visual thing that I like to play with whenever I do my live sets. And I was thinking of background graphic to use for this, and I was like, that fits. I like that. So it's pretty good. I don't have too much to talk about with warp speed. It was a pretty quick process for it. I mean, faster than the other ones. There was one song that stood out in terms of the speed that it took to write it, but warp speed didn't take like too overly long. It was one of the shorter work times, and it has a very simple message. Like I said, chilling in the lounge. But at this point, we're coming out of warp and we're in somewhere totally new. This is a place we've never seen before. This is uncharted territory, space, the final frontier, all of those fun classic sci-fi phrases. And so we're dropping out of warp here, and we're about to discover some new fun things. So we'll drop out of warp with that too. This was actually the first song that I wrote for the album. It starts off very quiet. It's something that a few of you may have heard. It was the first thing I ever showed off. I wasn't even sure of anything. I hadn't even fully committed to the idea of making this an album by the time that I was writing this. I had just wanted to do something ambient, and a lot of the work that I did on it was actually inspired by Arms and Sleeper's song Faraway Places, which had recently come out. And I was like, I want to do something like that, just like this really spacey ambient piece. So that's what I started doing. So it was the first one I wrote, and I worked a long time on it, actually. Took a lot longer than I would have expected for being as simple as it is. But I really like it. I ended up listening to it a lot of different times. At this point in our story, in our journey, we have come down to a new planet, our first new planet on our journey. And it's like this barren, not quite barren, I guess, more windswept planet. There's like no terrain almost. Everything's completely blasted by the winds to the point where, nothing could really survive on the top. So it's not necessarily like some giant desert. It's not like a tundra or anything like that. It's just so scorched by winds that everything has a hard time living. And it kind of brings about, as you pass over this and you see these like cracks and crags of like, could there even be something living despite all of these conditions? And that was the idea that I was toying with. It was like this infinite possibility kind of idea. And it's not too dissimilar from the idea of the entire album, which I think is why it was such a good starting point for me. Because it's like, yeah, you're on this planet and you have all the possibilities of space, but they're all confined to a single planet. And that notion was really powerful to me, I think. I really liked starting with that idea. And here we get into like this sort of idea that there is something here. We've swept past and we've started to find people that have generated energy from this wind. A concept that was largely inspired by the Arakeen from Dune, the people who live despite being on this terrible desert planet. And there's like people that have used windmills to harvest this incredible wind power and turn it into energy, and all of these like civilizations that you see that have risen up. And I really like that idea, and so I created like this industry kind of tone. So that's sort of where this section came out of, and I wanted it to be like an abrupt shift, so I ended up taking a lot of the elements and using them in very different ways. And then we pass out of that area and we come back to this nice peaceful ambient on the windswept plain again. If you couldn't tell from all of the music so far and anything else that I made, I really like sub basses. I have a really bad habit of calling them subbies, and I will talk to a normal human being and be like, yeah, I used a subby, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about, that's weird. But I love sub bass. There's actually been a few things I've made where I've made the sub bass so low that most speakers can't play it, so a lot of people are probably listening to it and never hearing that. And the only reason I can is because I have these ridiculous $400 headphones that I spent specifically because of things like bass range and stuff. But I really like the density and the kind of depth that they provide into the music. So I use them a lot in this album especially. Man, we're 3 songs in and I'm already almost out of water. Should have rationed that better. Or gotten a second glass, I guess. So at this point we are leaving the Stellar Steps and we're going somewhere new, which brings us to our 4th song, Quasar. Quasar is a fully live played, no sequence, no quantization, completely live track. And I did that because I felt like it needed to be extra organic in comparison to the other songs, because what we're looking at, if you don't know what a quasar is, it's basically like a super ever-evolving storm of space caused by a black hole. So a star has gone supernova, and we are caught in the storm. And so each of these rising swells is a pulse of stellar energy, a pulse of radiation slamming into us and sending us just a little bit more off course every time. So I realized that the only way that I could possibly get that swell, that energy, was by giving it to it by hand. There was no amount of sequencing that I was going to do that was going to give it just the right element of storm that I needed, because I tried. I spent so much time trying to get the right sequence, and then one day I was over at my parents' house playing their piano, and I came up with the piano melody behind this, and I've been playing it ever since. I love it. Just this ever-evolving storm. And I played the piano, I layered onto the piano, changed it into the synth that you hear now, and then added the pads as almost like a string chorus. It's very traditionally composed in that sense. It uses synths, but it is a lot more than just a synth piece. And so these are like these swells where it gets faster, and the energy behind it is really what you hear. So that rising volume in those pads is meant to convey that energy more than the actual volume of the keys. The keys get faster, the energy gets louder. A interesting technique that I have second guessed ever since I did it, but I think it conveys it the best way I could have. This was kind of a midpoint in writing the album. I had written a few of the other songs, and I was stuck for a little while before I came up with this. And it's ironic that it's a midpoint in the story, but it feels like a good turning point. It's this point where we have been exploring, we're all hopeful, feeling the glory of space, and then we come face to face with one of the most dangerous things we possibly could have. And I think it's a good representation of how I was feeling at the time, because I was, dealing with the hardest semester I had yet in school, and it was the biggest, creative gap that I had had in a while. So I personally felt like I was coming face to face with the quasar while I was writing it, and I channeled as much of that into this as I could. And I think I succeeded, but it's such an important turning point, being midway through the album. We've gone through the glory, and now we're facing the horror of space travel. Last little bit knocks us off course, and we go spinning through the void, falling amongst the stars. which is our next song. There's a little bit of Mars noise in here as well. That clip that they took on Mars this year, I went ahead and snagged it and dropped it into a number of these songs. It came out after I finished Stellar Steps, but I put it in this one, and a few of the other ones. It's used in different ways. But most of this wind sound that you have going on in the background, the static, is actually room noise. I just set my microphone up and let it record while I went ahead and did random things, and then layered a bunch of effects on top of it until it sounded spacey enough, and dropped it in there, and that's the floor for the track. It's this static you hear in your brain as you spin through the void, not knowing when you're going to stop, just constantly spiraling, completely unaware of where you are. This track really summed up primal anxiety, just this constant worry of who am I, what am I doing, do I ever really have any control over anything? And in the story, the answer is no. You don't have any control. You are stuck in space, the one place where there's nothing to grab onto, and you're spinning. You're just spinning, and you can't do anything except what you're doing and what's happening and what has happened and what could happen. You're just spiraling through the abyss with nothing but acceptance. And I think that's a really important thing to recognize in our own lives. We don't always control things. And I mean, for me personally, writing this is such an important thing, therapeutic almost, because there have been a lot of things in my life that I've had no control over, and that's something I had to accept over time. It's something I had to get used to, because you're never going to be able to control all of your circumstances, but you can control how you feel about them and what you do next a lot of the time. So writing this was a really important practice in that. And it's a message that I definitely wanted to come across pretty strong. And most of the people I've shared it with have told me that it made them feel anxious, so mission accomplished, I guess? I don't know. I don't usually want to make people feel uncomfortable or anxious whenever they listen to my music. My music is usually designed with the opposite goal in mind, but this one's an exception. I don't think it makes it unpleasant to listen to. But this little section is pretty fun. This is another song that I found myself playing over and over again. And this section was really fun to put together, because it was a parallel inside of a parallel. Quasar ended up being a very similar structure to Falling Among Stars, and then Falling Among Stars had this parallel inside of it. And I always knew that I wanted it to have a parallel. It was the second song I wrote for the album, but I wanted it to have a twin. I wasn't planning on Quasar for it being its twin, but now looking back, I think that's the only natural thing that I could have done. And this section here, this is really the culmination it's been, so it needs to be its most confusing, the most needs to be happening, and difficult here too, because as it got louder, there are these little dropouts that I had time with the distortion, and it was really difficult to try and get the volume spike just correctly enough to get the distortion right where I wanted it to, because I didn't want a lot, but I wanted just these tiny flecks, and took a lot of time just doing the balancing and the mixing to get the volume spike just right, so that I would get that tiny little fleck of distortion in there. And here we're slowing down. The spiral has stopped. We flailed our arms enough that we finally managed to catch a bit of a slow. So we're slowly easing into our momentum, and everything's slowing down a little bit. We're gaining our bearings and control of ourselves. Not so lost in space anymore. This was the last part that I actually ended up finishing doing it. This intro. And it's everything coming back on and back together after we've spun for ages. So you got that little electrical beep. A cool mix of wonder and confusion after the last two tracks of just like chaos and falling sounds, and everything's spinning a little bit more direct and simple, not too many sounds at once, and then you jump into this and there's all these things happening, very industrial electronic sounds, like having your wires crossed, and it's why it's brain fuzz. The spinning is worn off, you finally come back to your senses, and now all of a sudden there's all these things happening at once. You've got these comms going off, you've got these little lights indicating things that you have to do. You've come out of a fuzz and entered a different fuzz. So you're like back to the chaos and the hecticness of life. Even if it is a life in space, it's still alive. Which, this is like one of the purest parallels in the entire album that I had, was it's like regular life. You know, you're taking care of the spaceship and whatever in the case of the story, but it's the going back to living correctly, normally, after tragedy, after something big happens, it completely knocks you off your feet. Now you have to go back to normal. And I think it's like a really good parallel to today. You know, right now we are slowly coming out of the coronavirus funk, and life has been completely different for over a year, and now we're trying to ease ourselves back into it, and it's chaotic and confusing. Nobody really knows what to do and what not to do, and here we are. But got some cool solos. Hopefully some cool solos. This is also the one time in the entire album that I used a non-software instrument. That bass in the background is bass guitar that you see sitting right over there. And I just felt like I needed that element of humanity, that element of Earth. You know, it's not a computer, it's not even a synthesizer, it's a bass guitar. It's something that's like undeniably human, and it's got groove. So I sat down and I played it over top, and I thought it did really well. And now we finally got ourselves sorted out. So after all the mess, this is bringing us to our second planet on the journey. It's ironic, it's called Parallel Worlds, and we're going on a journey amongst the stars, but here we are on track 7, and we've seen 2 planets, 2 parallel worlds. But I think this might be my favorite song. In terms of how it sounds. Mostly because I don't remember writing it that much. It happened so quickly. It was the shortest time out of any of the songs. Most of the songs took upwards of like 10 hours. This one took like 3. Despite the complexity behind it, it was just a really easy ambient piece to put together. And because it went by so quickly in the middle of everything else, it just, I forgot. I forgot that it's me, and it has so much, like it's almost like something that happened to me. And it has so much character of its own. So every time I listen to it, it's like, look at this thing that just came out of the ether. It used me as its vessel to come into existence. That's how it feels, at least. Obviously, I mean, there were conscious decisions that were made in writing it, but it feels more like the music took over me and did it for me. Just used my body to do it. But it's a point in the story where we're exploring this second planet, and it's a big icy planet. It's the name Frozen Discoveries, and we're kind of floating over the surface, looking down into the ice, and seeing specks of what might be civilization. And so it's a very calm, ambient experience, especially in comparison to the last few songs that were anything but calm. So there was, figure I'll share this. Forgot how to open things for a quick second. Okay. So this was the other idea that I had for album art. This is the only other idea that I really did anything with. And this is a draft, so like, this really vibrant blue at the bottom probably would have changed the angles and stuff, or location of the text probably would have changed. But this felt too much like just stars, and the idea of the album was, there's something out there. So why would I just show a picture of a bunch of really far away stars? That doesn't make any sense. So after spending a lot of time, many hours, scouring NASA's open source space pictures, I settled on this nebula picture, and this has gone through a fair amount of editing stuff, but it conveys the parallel world idea is so much better, because it's something that's out there, and if you don't know, I know a lot of this space stuff. If you don't know what a nebula is, it's also called a star nursery, and they're giant clouds of gas in space, and they get excited by something, usually a black hole, and spin until everything collides and creates planets and a star and a solar system. So once 14 billion years or so ago, we were one of these. And now we're not. Not much to say past that, but who knows? Maybe that picture could be a new Earth sometime. So, took too long explaining that, and this is the beginning of the song. Arcology, our track 8, which is playing right now, is a cool concept I've wanted to make a song about a long time. Arcology is architecture designed to look like ecology. It's ecological architecture, which is where the words get mixed together. But it's basically buildings and structures designed to look as if they were part of the natural world. A really good example of this is if you look up the city Arcosanti. I believe it's in either Arizona or New Mexico, somewhere out in the West US. It's very beautiful, and that's the kind of concept. So here we come across a city that's set into the landscape and almost looks like it's part of the landscape, but it's this grand setup, this grand civilization, and that's why I came up with these big swooping sounds, and I made sure to make them very, very swoopy, because it's like passing these giant statues and buildings and stuff, just this huge grandeur. And I use the aharmonic minor scale specifically because it does a really good job of conveying that kind of notion. It's also very commonly used in the Phrygian dominant scale, very commonly used in desert music, which is usually Middle Eastern or Northern African deserts. And the Phrygian dominant scale is often referred to as the Hijaz scale. But it gives a very good notion of like big great city in the middle of nothing, which is what I wanted. I really like that bit. So just that little rise there as everything picks up. I always forget how long the ending drags out. It just ends. Drags for like a minute and a half and then it just cuts. I actually haven't listen to this since I finished it. So since I sent it to the distributor and listened to it to make sure everything was good. So this is a new experience almost for me, listening to it all the way through like this, and I will probably do it a bunch more over the summer. But here we come to our end. As the saying goes, every journey must end, and this is ours, track 9, which is called aptly Every Journey. And it was really hard to write. I waited until the end, after finishing everything else, to write this one, because I couldn't write the end without knowing every aspect of what leads up to it. And it was just so hard to do, because I didn't want it to end. I mean, yeah, the journey through space, in terms of the concept that it follows. Of course, you're not wanting to go home at this point. You've explored space, you've survived the dangers, you've gone through all these things, these trials, and discovered these new worlds. Of course, you're not going to want to go home. But you kind of have to. You have to return and live. And just in the same way, I mean, whenever I set out to write Parallel Worlds, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And I was just pushing. It's like, I gotta finish the album. And then time came to finish the album, and I didn't want it to be over. The journey that I had gone on to write it, I wanted to keep going forever, but you know, I had to finish it. I had to release it. I couldn't just keep making music for this album and never release it. I knew that if I didn't make a decision and finish it where I said I would, that it was never going to end. So I decided that this was how I was going to put the final cap on the story. And what a final cap it is. Very resolving, but reminiscent of maybe there's more, which is how I feel. I have so many more ideas about worlds to explore, concepts to explore through music, and this is my first album. So there's plenty more to come. There was plenty more to come even after finishing this, obviously, because look at everything I've released since. Full EP, single, and I've got some more on the way. Still putting it together, but hopefully that'll be out by the end of this year, the latest. But yeah, and as you can tell, I didn't want it to end, so I dragged the song out as long as I could. Just keeps rolling. I really took everything I learned from the other 8 songs and poured it into this one. Both technically and emotionally and all that. Just every message, every lesson I took, and I found a way to implement it. So even though motif-wise, sound-wise, it's not exactly the same, the way it was constructed, everything behind it is built on the previous 8 songs. By the time I got this one, I knew exactly what I honestly weird enough that this live stream is coming to an end. But everything must. So that is the entirety, start finish of Parallel Worlds. Thanks for tuning in, everyone who did. Yeah, I wasn't sure about doing a live stream or anything like that, but I figured I should do something, and this felt right. It sounds pretentious to say, but it is definitely a high concept album, because it doesn't just tell a story, but it also tells a lot in emotion and feeling. So there was a lot that went into it, and this felt like the best way to discuss everything that went into it. And there's plenty more that I could have discussed that I just didn't think of it at the time. So there's a very human element. I get to hear me stuttering over myself for an hour. But yeah, I hope you like it, and I hope it makes you feel something. I don't know what, but something. And there's going to be more. There's going to be plenty more coming our way. You can check out everything I've got on YouTube. There will be more videos soon. Spotify. There will be more music there too. So keep an eye out. It'll be fun to see what comes next. Album 1 down. Did it. Mine's on Spotify. I haven't checked to see if that's up yet. But last I checked, it was not. That's weird. Anyway. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. And I hope you have a great day.